So what I'm going to take you through, I'm going to do quite quickly. So you're going to benefit from the recording, but bearing in mind that most planning tools take weeks to learn how to use, Joy is very intuitive. So just watching this demonstration, you'll probably be able to get up and running without any problem at all. The other thing as well is the environment you're going into, which will be working in hotels. Not many hotels use a product like this. And if you think they'll have their own banquet event order systems and things like that. But Joy, if you think about it as a client interface, so this is something that you can plan with a client as well as do your own planning. And it makes planning an awful lot easier. So what David has asked me to do is demonstrate setting up a 3-day conference for a venue. So let's take as our example, we've got a conference at the Hilton. It's going to have an exhibition zone in the foyer. It's going to have a plenary room and a couple of breakouts as well. And maybe we'll even slip a gala dinner in there too. So what I'm going to do is show you how to start building that event out from scratch and show you some examples as well of a completed event. So when you go into Joy, you actually won't see any events on your homepage. You'll have a blank homepage, but you'll be able to see the new event button. So you click new event, and I'm just going to call this conference and create the event. So Joy comes up with the standard configuration for all of the elements that you're going to need in the event. Event information is where you put things like the all very important objectives, what are the goals of the event, audience profiles, etc. You can see that tile navigation is now visible down the side here. Workforce is where you invite everyone in who's going to be working on the event with you. So if you're in a venue and you are working with a client, you would invite the client in and you could work on the event. You can also invite people like the AV team in as well as your own team. You have tasks. Obviously, all events involve a whole lot of tasks. You have the all-important program. And then you've got these manage windows, performers, sponsors, exhibitors, which I'll come on to once we've populated, as well as the on-site schedule. And we can go to that once we've populated the program. Facilitator notes, which is like the MC. So scripting the MC, giving them housekeeping, all of those things. Certainly in COVID times is really important. Everyone needs to know what they need to do. My schedule and publish. So I'm going to walk through the functionality of all of these elements in the next 20 minutes and just show you how it works. But the first thing we're going to is the program builder. So this is program or agenda. And if you think of it in terms of what actually you want the audience to see when they register for an event, they want to see the agenda or on a program, and this is what they're going to see. The thing about Joy as well is it builds the program in a way that helps you with logistics later on, which we'll come back to. But first of all, let's start building our program. And remember, this is a 3-day conference and it's got that exhibition zone, etc., and breakouts and things. And it says here in the program builder, start your program, add a room or location, and then add your sessions. So just think of it in terms of how you're actually going to use the venue. And in this case, it's the Hilton Hotel in Sydney. I don't know if any of you have been there, but they've got a great pre-function area outside the ballroom, which is really good for exhibition. And you also generally do the registration in there as well. So people come in, they check in, they walk around the exhibition area, they have all of their catering, and then they go into the plenary. So that's the first thing that's going to be at the event. So I go add room location and I put in exhibition zone. You can call it, you can get more creative, experience zone, all those sorts of things. And I add that room and location. So at the moment, it doesn't have any date attached to it. And each room location has its own date and venue. So in this event, I could be dealing with another venue somewhere else for the gala dinner. And so the ability to create a separate location is critical. I'm going to do my event in a week's time for the give myself a good short planning time. And this is going to be the foyer at the Hilton, and then I can select the venue. So to create the venue, it's the Hilton Sydney. Search Google, comes up with the Hilton. I can create that as my venue and add. So now I've got the foyer in the Hilton Sydney, and I'll click done on that. Now, the other rooms I want to do are going to be the plenary. So I'll do the plenary, which is going to be in the ballroom, and it's going to inherit the time and location from the previous one if I select that. So I'll just do ballroom and done. Then I've got some breakouts. So again, inherit date and venue from the plenary. So I'll add that room location and call it breakout 1. I'll call it B1 for the sake of my slow typing. Add room location B2. We're just going to have 2 breakouts in this one for the sake of time. And also I want to do that gala dinner. Now, I don't want the gala dinner to actually be in the Hilton. I think I'm going to choose a different venue. So I've still inherited the date, but I'm going to select a different venue. And I'm going to go Town Hall Sydney for my gala dinner. Select Town Hall Sydney and create. Select that. You'll also notice that when you actually select from Google, it gives you a time zone, which is really handy for when you're sending out calendar invites, etc., because it will inherit the time zone. So here we have the room location I'm going to use for my event. And you know, if this was a festival, it might be stage 1, stage 2, food zone 1, food zone 2, all those things. So if it's an incentive, it might be, you know, morning meeting, and then this could be golf course. So it's very, very versatile. You can build out any events. Now we actually want to start building out the sessions. So here, my event is going to start with people arriving, and they're going to have registration, and they're going to have breakfast. So I whack that in, and spelling is terrible. Registration and breakfast, and going, ooh, 9 o'clock. I don't want to start at 9 o'clock. I think I'll open registration at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I now have registration and breakfast, and that's going to go for an hour. So I changed the duration to 60 minutes. So that's going from 8 to 9. Then I look at my plenary and go, well, my first session is going to be the welcome. That's going to be at 9 o'clock. I'll keep it there. It's only 15 minutes. And then I'm going to add sessions. So I'm going to, for the sake of time, I won't give them any detail. I'll call it session 1, session 2. And what am I starting to think about now? We've got session 3 and 10:45. Probably time for a bit of a break. But then some of these sessions I might actually want to go for 45 minutes because they're jolly interesting. And that's taking me to 10:45. I'm thinking, yep, they're going to be ready for a break. You see here, you've got this thing called add out of session, which means that the room isn't going to be used in that period of time. And this is really useful for logistics when we get to the on-site schedule and planning activity. So I do an out of session, which is going to be morning coffee. And the morning coffee at 10:45 is actually going to be in the exhibition zone because I want them to go around all the exhibitors. So I look at this and go, well, they're going into the plenary at 9 o'clock. So we need an out of session until 10:45. So that's how long? An hour and 45 minutes, which is 105 minutes. And that takes me to 10:45. I can add a session and call it morning coffee. And it's going to be a 30-minute session. So I'm now building out my event as to what's going on. I'll add another session here, S4. These also are going to be 45 minutes, which will take me to lunch. So there we go, 12:45. I'll add a small session, MC wrap of the morning. And I just want a little 15-minute session going there. Now, if I want to play around with these sessions, go, oh, I actually want to do session 3 second, I can drag and drop sessions and play around with my agenda. Now, how's that looking for, obviously, you wouldn't want to present this to people who are going to attend the event because it's a bit confusing to have these separate areas and these outer sessions. So if you go to preview, you can actually see that it puts everything in order. So I've got registration and breakfast, welcome, but then I've got these untitled sessions, which are the 2 breakout rooms, B1 and B2, and also the gala dinner. That's because I haven't put any times on those. And then I've got my other sessions and up to the MC wrap in the morning. So if I go back to build, I go, well, actually, my breakouts are going to start at, we're going to have an hour long for lunch. So I'll add another out of session because we're going to do, again, lunch in the exhibition zone. So that, again, is 105. And I add session and call it lunch. And I'm going to make that 60 minutes. So there we go. So we've now got the morning, and that ends at 1400, and that's when I want my breakouts to start. So I'm going to put in 1400 as my start time for my breakouts, and then I can put in my sessions. So that's B11 and B21. And they're going to both be an hour long. So I'll whack those in for an hour. I can add a further session after those, and B12, B22. So you can see it's easy then to play around with what time I'm going to do morning and afternoon tea, and what time we're going to go back into the plenary. And if I go, and I'm actually going to change the date of this because the gala dinner is going to be on the Wednesday night. So I'm just going to move that out to Wednesday. Done. And if I go back to preview, you can see now that my schedule is looking quite neat and tidy. Registration and breakfast, welcome, sessions, morning coffee, MC wrap, morning lunch, etc. Now, the nice thing about the way that Joy works, and you can see as well that we've got the gala dinner session in there as well. The nice thing about Joy is because you build it by room location, everything's actually got its address in it. So if I go back to build and go back to these sessions, the manage room location, I can add in room 3-4 or 3-4. Which we're going to use for the breakout. And then I can add room 6-7. Now, when you're looking at the program you're going to send round to everyone, it's actually got the location of each activity. So people can look at the program and see instantly it's room, breakout one's in room 3-4. So that sort of stuff saves you a huge amount of time down the track. The gala dinner is going to start at 1800, and I'm just going to call it dinner for the sake of time. And that's going to go for, by the way, when you're doing things, enjoy, and you've got to do length of time of sessions, it's good just to whack in any number that comes into your head and see how close you get to you want. That's 10 o'clock, want it to finish at 11. So I'm going to add another hour to that. So 300 minutes. So I've got 6 o'clock in the evening to 11 o'clock at night. You'll notice we use 24-hour clock. That's because you want to avoid, when you're planning events, you want to avoid any confusion. And 7 o'clock can be misinterpreted by people to go, is it morning or afternoon? And it can add unnecessary angst. So you want to do it as the 24-hour clock. This is going to go for a number of days. So to add a day, you simply click on add a day, and you will get an additional day to your program. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to build out the rest of those days. I can add a day to my breakouts as well. Now, I'm going to look at performers, sponsors, and exhibitors. So if I look at my session 1, I can open it up and have the manage session window, and I can add a performer. So I'm going to add my favorite performer, Dave Ray, and create performer. That's all I have to do to create a performer, and I add him to the session. So that's wonderful. That session has now got a performer in it. If I go to the performer table, I can see Dave Ray in there. And it's got all of these controls that I can just see at a glance where the status of Dave Ray is. Is he invited? So if I can go to the session, I can go, yep, Dave Ray's accepted. So he's going to turn up to the session. And I can do things like send him a URL to get his performer details. So I go, hey, Dave, I'll open that in a new tab. Hey, Dave, can you send me your headshot and your bio and all of that information? So I can collect all the information I need really easily. And as I add performers, that'll go down. With sponsors, I can add a sponsor. I'm just going to add Acme. Add the sponsor, and I can actually allocate that sponsor to a session. So if I look at sessions and I go, I want him to them to be the sponsor of Dave Ray's session, I can click and add that. Sorry, my Zoom control is in the way of my button, as is always the way. So I'll just save that. And now when I go into that session, you'll see that sponsor Acme is in the session. With exhibitors, obviously we want exhibitors to be in the exhibition zone. So again, I can add an exhibitor. So in this case, it's Rolex. Didn't add them. Rolex. And add exhibitor. And like the session, I can actually add them to a room location. So in this case, it's the exhibition zone. I can put in the stand size, create a stand size. It's a 2x2. Save that. And because I'm really organized, I already know their stand number. So that's A3. So I've got the information on the exhibitor. Now, if I go back into program, because the exhibitor is attached to the room location and not an individual session, you'll see the exhibitor in that actual room location. So Rolex A3, done. So that is how you add your sponsors and exhibitors to everything. When you go to publish, I can create a publish page and actually publish this so people can see it and attend the event. So I'll call it program, and I'll create, and you'll see the whole program appear here. You'll also see that my performers are automatically put in a box, and any detail I have in the performers will be there. Likewise with sponsors and exhibitors. So it does a lot of work for you. I'll just show you a complete event. So this event here is a more complete event. So I've got breakouts and all of my social events, etc., in there. And actually within the events, I've got my session descriptions and my performer details and all of that sort of stuff. So when I go and look at the published program, I can see the full program here, and it populates and people can access all of that information and see all the information I've put into Joy. And that can be likewise my speakers, because I've got photographs. I can click on them and it'll give you their bios if they've got a bio in there, tell them which sessions they're in, all done automatically. So you've built out your program. Let's go back to our conference. And you'll notice there's a publish button here. Once you hit publish, you actually, it generates a URL. So you can open that URL in a new tab and you'll see the whole program, or you can actually embed it into a website if it takes HTML, or use a JSON feed. So there's a number of ways you can publish. Next thing we want to do, though, is we've got the program. Now we actually want to look at tasks. We've only got a very short period of time, so I think we should tell the Hilton that we actually want to do a conference next week. And so we've got book venue. Now I can add more detail. If I've got anyone a due date for that, so I want to book it tomorrow, I want to allocate responsibility. There's only me in the workforce, so I actually need to add someone to the workforce so I can allocate them tasks, so I don't have to do anything. So I'm going to look for David. Oh, I haven't got a David. I'll go Rob. I'll invite myself, continue, and I can set permissions. So program, you do everything. Logistics, you can do everything except play around with the program. Facilitator is purely for whoever you're going to share the facilitator notes with to edit, and guest sees everything as read-only. So I'm going to make Rob program. So he's invited. Now if I go to tasks and book venue, I can actually go, brilliant, responsibility is Rob. So when Rob accepts that event, he'll actually get an email saying you've been allocated to a task and tell him what the task is. You can also label your tasks and give them a name. So I could have this as venue. So I'll save that label and allocate that. That's really handy for when you've got hundreds of tasks and you want to see what's going on. So we've now added someone, we've put in the event information. And by the way, when you invite people to the workforce, they can see all of this. So basically you're using this as an opportunity to brief them. You invite whoever you need to the workforce and allocate them tasks. And you can build out a whole lot of tasks. So in my pre-prepared conference, I've got a large number of people in the workforce, and I've got a whole lot of tasks that are attached to that event, and they're filterable. So for instance, here I've got a critical path. I can just check that I am on track by seeing that I've done everything, the critical path. I haven't done anything, I'm not on track. The red means you're overdue, obviously. Back to my conference, I built out the program over multiple days. I've got a gala dinner and a separate offsite location. I've put in a performer, a sponsor, an exhibitor. Now I get to on-site schedule. So because of the way you build in Joy, you actually create a schedule for each room location that you create in the program. So I've actually got, and you'll notice that the gala dinner isn't there because the gala dinner actually is the next day. So the gala dinner there appears as a schedule. And this is great because it means that I can actually allocate activity which is specific to that area. So exhibition zone going, actually, we want to give them the day before, and they'll get access. We've spoken to the venue and we have exhibitor access. Now, the really powerful thing about Joy is, just move my control again, add more detail. The really good thing about Joy is that I can actually tag people. So I can tag exhibitors to that activity. So now everyone looking at Joy can see the exhibitor access. And if I go to the timeline view, it shows me all of my activities and all of my sessions in one sequential timeline. Everyone can see now the exhibitors have access at 11 o'clock if they're on the workforce. From the exhibitor perspective, when I look at Rolex, I can send them a brief, and in the brief is a schedule, and that schedule will include everything that's going on in the room location they're in, so they know what time lunch is, morning coffee and all that sort of stuff, so they make sure that the exhibition stands are manned, but also they can see that activity I put in for exhibitor access. And the same applies to all activities. So for instance, again, if I go back to the on-site schedule, looking at Monday, the next day, the plenary, I'm thinking, well, I've got a whole lot of stuff I need to do. One of them could be, though, rehearsing Dave Rave. And again, I can add more detail and tag the performer Dave Rave to that, and done that. And when I go to Dave Rave, I can see in his brief that, and there's a whole lot more stuff. So when you play around with briefs, you'll see a whole lot more stuff appear, but his rehearsal is in there. And it's got the room location as well. So he knows what time to be somewhere and where. As an organizer, saves you a massive amount of time. The other thing with the schedule is you can do different schedules. So, when you come to the gala dinner, for instance, you might want to do a schedule which is the food service. So you can do things like preset entrees. And when I add more detail, I can go, cool, I'm actually going to give that a label. I'll give it a yellow label, and that's going to be catering. And now catering stuff, look at that, there's a label. I'll add that label. Now, when I go to the timeline, I can see all of the activities that are in there, and I might go, actually, I just want to see the catering activities. So I can filter on that label, apply that, and go, oh, cool, all right. I'm actually going to share that now with the catering company. So I'll create a timeline called catering, add, and then I'll go, well, they don't want all of this information in the timeline. They just want the catering stuff. So I apply that. And I've now created a shareable schedule that just has anything with that label in it. And I can copy that URL and email it to whoever I want and go, here's your schedule. They can actually then subscribe to calendar and have that appear in their own calendar if they want. Just the facilitator notes very quickly. Obviously, you can write anything you need for the notes. So cover COVID safe stuff. And you can share this with your MC and they can write their own notes in anytime that you want. And you can also share it with anybody you like by using the public URL. My schedule is there because anything that I would have added myself to in the schedule will appear automatically in my schedule. And that is Joy in 30 minutes.
That's fantastic, Rob. I haven't heard you talk so fast, ever.
I hope that wasn't too confusing. I hope that all made sense. But what I've done in 30 minutes, if you were doing it in Excel, if you wanted to get anywhere close to that, it probably would have taken you 3 to 4 hours.
Very true. And what we know from event management courses is that quite often we talk about and Excel spreadsheets, of course, or tables. And what you've shown us is something that's really quite intuitive and is a step way above a Gantt chart or an Excel, and less chance of error.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's easy to see what you're doing. And when you go into Joy, click around on everything and because you'll get far more benefit when you start clicking around, seeing what you can do, and the power of Joy, because it's the way it also presents information in different ways. So you can manage things. So like, the preview, so you can see what it looks like for the delegates. The logistics gives you a breakdown of everything. So when you put stage notes, things like that in, you can actually share them with the AV company along with presentation files and all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, as a venue, you want a summary of which rooms are used and where. And this gives you a beautiful summary of all of that information. And it's the same with all of the elements you look at. So by building your program in Joy, and then, looking at tasks. And by the way, one thing I didn't show you is tasks in a calendar view. So it's really easy to see going, oh, I've got to send final numbers to the venue on Monday. They'll be really happy with getting them one day before. All of those things. So it's actually easy to build out your tasks as you require them. And likewise with the on-site schedule, it's really easy to look at and go, well, if I've got registration at 8 o'clock, I'm going to need to set up the registration desk at 6. And then make sure that it's all good. And the nice thing is that everyone can see it. So no confusion.
And I think what you've also shown us is because it's available as a URL and is updated immediately, it means that if you have any changes at the venue on the day, then you can quickly add something in if there's something changed or something new that's urgent. And this really helps the hotels keeping up to speed with what's going on.
Absolutely. And if you get clients in, then your client will see exactly what's going on, and you'll also be able to get what's in their head out of their head and in a usable format. One of the greatest pains that you'll have in working in venues, certainly with conferences, is the client doesn't really tell you everything, because the client won't necessarily understand what they need to do to make the conference work.